only one question that I've considered standard for this show. And so,
Okay. So this could be a very brief interview.
well, that question, it's a launching point. Depends on.
That question is, what is your favorite color?
You brought that up. Do you have a favorite color?
Oh, purple. Definitely purple.
Mine too. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't actually know that. Okay, the question that I've asked in all previous interviews is, do you consider yourself an activist?
Sort of. I consider myself a revolutionary.
Really? Well, that's
Yeah.
a step up from activist, I would say.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
So why do you, can you expand on that? Why do you consider yourself a revolutionary?
I believe joy is a revolutionary act. And I'm a very joyful person. I'm very happy.
So in just pursuing joy as sort of like the purpose of your life, that's why you consider yourself revolutionary.
Absolutely.
So you're not saying in terms of social revolution of major power structures in the world. That's not a focus of yours.
No, I've very deliberately decided not to focus upon that.
And why is that?
Because I don't feel like I have the insight to be able to affect change in a reliably positive manner.
This is wild. So yeah, another person just jumped in for a second.
I heard that. So I feel like I have some ideas. I have a sense of what an enlightened political system might be. But I'm aware that it's such a complicated thing that I can't possibly have complete insight, and my notions of what constitute a positive political system may themselves be flawed. So in trying to affect change on that level, I might very well have a negative impact upon the world. So I don't feel a tremendous amount of confidence that if I dedicated myself to that, the outcome would be positive. Whereas if I dedicate myself to personal happiness, there's a lot greater chance that the impact will be positive. It's a lot more reliable.
So you're hesitant to be at all a sort of a puppet master for what goes on in the world because you don't have confidence. You really know what to do, what to change so that the world would be a better place.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not really an idealistic person in that sense.
In the sense, in what sense?
In the sense of affecting change on a macroscopic level, impacting world politics or even national politics.
Because but that's because you just don't, it's not because you don't care or do not care what happens on the macroscopic scale like that.
Well, I would say that I care, that it affects me, but things that are closer to me, things that are the more immediate, impact me far more. So I choose to focus my energies on those things. So it's a fairly abstract sense of caring. So it doesn't have the immediacy and the vigor of my tangible relationships and my connections within the community in which I live.
Yeah, it's a topic that I sort of I think about all the time. The pursuit of personal personal happiness in our sort of the microcosm of our individual life versus pursuing anything to do with trying to make the world a better place. Because they really are, they're very different spheres of life. And I've been spending a lot of time over the last 3 years, more than I ever have before in my life, sort of like spent a lot of energy focused on trying to think, how can we change the world in a way to make it much better. And it takes a lot of attention away from, it can take a lot of attention away from your personal joy, personal happiness, to focus on such big things. And a large part of myself, I don't feel like my personal happiness is tied to the state of the world. I don't have much problem separating those two things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to me so often idealism is rendered ironic through politics.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So when there's a passionate, fairly rigid sense of how things should be, and a country, a group of people works towards that end, and they're successful, it seems that often the consequences are in many ways the opposite of what they were ostensibly struggling to achieve.
Yeah.
So there'll be a struggle for freedom and liberty, and the consequences will be oppression.
Yeah.
Some very violent form of cleansing, brutality.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective on the people that make big efforts to try to lead movements to really change their countries over the course of history, they get caught up in the power they gain through trying to change their country, change the state of things. And then I think they just sort of get addicted to having the power over what decisions are made about resources and situations, and they don't, and maybe also they just didn't, no one's ever really known how to implement a government that was not prone to oppression.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's just never really been, no one's really never, Socrates, he had the theory of or Plato had the theory of the philosopher king, the idea we just need to put in power an incredibly wise person or people. That's the solution.
Sure.
It never has seemed to work. It's just not the way power works.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I think idealism itself is toxic.
Idealism is toxic?
Yes. The notion that you absolutely know what is right, what is fundamentally correct, and that fused with the desire to impose it upon the world, I think it is a toxic thing.
Yeah, there's nothing, I mean, there's lots of self-righteous people in the world, but activists, very self-righteous in their idealism. And I think it can really hold up activists from working together, because they're very fixated on their own ideas of what is right and what is best and what is most important. I encountered that a ton in the Occupy movement while facilitating, general assemblies. It's a lot of people with a good heart. Everyone basically knows they want to reduce oppression in the world and make things more fair, but people have different priorities, and it's very tricky facilitating and helping groups like that come together so they can make any sort of action that's productive.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the big problems is that our model, the framework that we have for making sense of issues and political systems even, is very, it works upon a polarized model, an adversarial model. So typically you have two competing systems of thought, of politics, whatever it might be, and they're struggling together for ascendancy. And that model is fundamentally oppressive, where one has power over the other. So often when there's a movement for social change, it accepts that model in some sense. So the struggle is to combat oppression, but the goal is to, in a sense, become the oppressor. And I don't think it's stated in those terms. I don't, this is a massive reduction, but I think when people approach an issue or a struggle, whatever it might be, it's perceived on some level in those terms, because those are the mental frameworks that we've inherited from the Enlightenment, pretty much from our modernist mode of thought. So it's one or the other. There's a dichotomy there. And even if you replace the power, the structure goes unchallenged. The fundamental structure goes unchallenged. It's hard to perceive. It's hard to even conceive of a struggle that doesn't, in some sense, follow that model, that doesn't accept that framework on some level, because it's just so pervasive. It's so ubiquitous.
Well, and we've talked about this a bit before, because you're one of the few people that I've talked at length with about the project that I'm working on here, that this podcast really only exists to help sort of support that project, the global consensus project.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about that, and then I'll get your feedback on your thoughts on its potential or lack thereof, or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
So one thing I'm learning, which I guess you probably are well aware of, when you are the host, it is very tricky to be focused on the conversation and also pay attention to other stuff, like any other stuff about the show.
Absolutely.
Technical stuff. I mean, oh man, I do not have enough brain power. So, I mean, we actually have had a few people watching, and they've sent me a few messages.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they're watching anymore, but a couple people at least gave it a shot and watched. So.
That's because you ignored them.
Well, the way this is supposed to work, let me at least, this is my theory of how these shows, at least some shows, are going to work. So this is not intended to be just you and me, or me and one or two people having a conversation and that being the show. That could be one type of show, but the more exciting form of the show that I am, all this technical setup is for potentially a audio video experience that could potentially have hundreds of thousands of people participating.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, technically I have it set up right now. This could scale to 1,000 people. It would need, and the way it would do that, I don't know, should I explain that? I don't know if you really care. If there was some geeks watching, but it could do it video-wise, because we're using this Zoom software. Now this room, the Zoom chat software that we're using, we have a free account, and anyone can create a free account. And with a free account, you can host a video conference like this with up to 50 people. And I actually shared the link on Twitter and on Facebook. And so that's why people have been dropping in. Technically, up to 50 people could be in this video conference. And so that's one way that this scales up, is just now, but there's limits to what you can do with a bunch of people on video. There's a limit to how well you can really communicate with that group of people. And so the global consensus project that I've been working on is, how do you scale up so that you have an egalitarian meeting where everyone participating is as equal as possible. How do you scale that up beyond 20 or 30 people? Because as a consensus facilitator can do pretty well with 20 to 30 people facilitating a very egalitarian consensus meeting, but it doesn't really go above that. And so this Zoom software is just sort of the one it's the audio video sort of tool we could use to support that. But the software that I've designed at the Global Consensus Project is made to give a more meaningful way, or to give a viable way to interact with thousands of people at once. So we could potentially be speaking to them, and the mass of people could be responding to us. And why don't I go? I know I've shown this to you before, but I'm going to share my screen and show it a little bit too. And I don't know how well you'll be able to see it. So we'll see. Because you're on an iPhone, you don't have a desktop. So we're going to see how well you can follow this. All right. Yeah. And I won't do this too long.
Mm-hmm. Just let me know if you want me to just start talking.
Well, are you, sorry. Well, let's see. Do you feel like you know enough about the project to comment on it as I'm pulling it up?
Well, probably not, but that doesn't necessarily deter me from.
Sorry again. All right, that won't happen again. Let's see, did that work? All right. Are you seeing it? Are you seeing screen?
Sure. Yep. I can see a screen.
All right.
There's lots of information on it, but it's way too small for me to read.
Right. Maybe you'll get the gist of what they're looking at here. And let me see.
Did you just start playing the banjo?
No. No, I'm having the darn technical thing again, because it's like there's what you're seeing and there is what I gotta change this. Stop sharing screen. I did the wrong screen. In order to keep our YouTube audience involved, I have to share a different screen.
Okay.
Otherwise, they are left out, even though there is no YouTube audience.
Right.
All right. So basically, what we're looking at is, in theory, if we could be doing this show, and if our goal was to facilitate a conversation between us and a massive audience of any size, they could be using this interface, which I designed to interact with us.
Sure.
And let's go in here. So in theory, we could, any number of people could be logged in here, and we could set the topic of the conversation, and that's in this window over here on the left. You set the topic, and that's this topic right now is Unleash the Fury, but not really much of a conversation topic. But
that's the topic of this conversation, is Unleash the Fury.
That's of this one on the screen.
Oh, okay.
So the way the software is sort of designed, it's sort of like topics are nodes in a network, and they're sort of threaded. Let me see if I can bring one that'll make more sense. So I'm going into the mindful activist node, and the first topic in there is Ask Me Anything, which is just for the Mindful Activist podcast. Anyone can ask any question. And so I don't know if are you able to see this at all on your little iPhone?
I can see it, but it's way too small for me to read it.
Okay.
So I can see the general structure of it.
And that's fine. For now, that's really, that works. And so imagine if there were a ton of people in here, they could be posting questions, and the questions you post down here, or like, who is this guy? People could post questions, or these could be responses to a question, and people can vote up and down these in real time. And we'd be able to see that as that's one sort of way that this mob of viewers could be interacting. They could be making statements and voting up statements. And that'd be one sort of reflection. Oh, your free meeting will end in 10 minutes. Upgrade to a paid account. All right, that's something I got to keep in mind. They have a 40-minute limit to these. Stay with free. So we might have to stop the meeting and restart it.
Okay.
And then I'll just finish the little tour of the interface as it is now. And then while we are speaking, our video could be here in the middle screen. And then people can sparkle up, sparkle down, and raise their hand down here. There's a chat window for just the masses of people to just sort of to be able to chat about things that aren't specifically tied to the focus topic. And then down here in the right is this is a place for video responses. So if people actually are capable of it, and it's not that tricky, they can actually record a video of what they have to say and upload it to YouTube. They could actually paste the video response here. And again, thousands of people could do that simultaneously, and you can vote up and down video responses. So that would be another way for us to sort of get from a mass of people, see what video responses they find most interesting. So, and anyways, I mean, it probably sounds a little bit chaotic, but all of this is to sort of replicate the amount of power that you have when you have face-to-face with people. They have a certain ability to do stuff, to interact, and to express themselves. So I'm trying to give people a way to express themselves, and whoever's facilitating a meaningful way to understand what the masses of people participating are actually thinking, so they can help shape the discussion and move the people to making decisions they want to make. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
Really?
For sure.
All right. I'm gonna have to practice that. Okay. So, all right. So we got this 7-minute countdown on the timer.
Okay.
This is the free session. We could just stop the meeting and restart it. I don't think there's any problem with that. So you game to do that?
Sure.
All
that
right.
works for me.
All right. So I'm going to send you a new link. I'm going to stop this meeting and send a new link. All right.
Okay. Sure.